everybody and welcome to the video. Today you'll explore with me my first foray into 8-track. Obviously if you've watched my channel before, you know that I'm very familiar and spend a lot of time with compact cassette, but I really haven't spent much time with these things. These are kind of crazy to me, other than having watched sort of Techmoan and sort of looking at it from the sidelines. I've never even handled one of these until I bought this deck. If you didn't know, 8-track kind of didn't really catch on that well in this country, because compact cassette came out sort of roughly in the same time period, and it just dominated Europe. And I think that was Philips's idea, was to make sure that it just dominated Europe and didn't really get any traction. So it didn't. So this machine and this format is kind of special to have in the UK. It did a lot better in the US, I think, than it did here, but it wasn't non-existent here. You just, compared to sort of compact cassette of the era, you just don't see this as much. But this is strange to me. Like, it's a funky format. I've always liked the look of the tape, and now I like the feel of the tape, but it's a really funky format. I mean, look at this. The pinch roller's in the tape. The pinch roller's in the tape. To a compact cassette person, that makes zero sense, because the pinch roller is always in the machine. So for the pinch roller to be in the tape, that's wild to me and is amazingly over-engineered. And I suppose in theory it probably has the bonus of making the tape last longer, because a pinch roller that's subjected to many tapes will obviously have a hell of a lot more wear, but if you're getting a fresh pinch roller each time, it should last forever, I guess, in theory. But yeah, this is my first foray into 8-track, and we're starting with a really, really special machine, so I can't wait to go over this. I got this for an amazing price on Facebook Marketplace. I think it was like £25 or something, and these are worth a lot more fixed up, let me tell you. So anyway, without further ado, let's look into it. So, as you can see by the thumbnail and the title, this is an Akai CR80D 8-track stereo recorder. Now, anybody who knows anything about 8-track, having this button on any 8-track unit is pretty special, because it wasn't often that you saw 8-track recorders. There's plenty of players out there, but very few of them can actually record something. So this is really exciting, and in a way is one of the best possible ways to get into 8-track, is to with a recorder, because you know, you have to remember a lot of the music on 8-track, I think sort of the early maybe to mid 1980s is about as far as it went, bar like small sort of indie releases today. So it's not very common to really find any sort of music newer than that. So if you don't like music from those time periods, you might struggle with this format. But if you've got a record button, you can take literally any tape, including like the ones I have here, chuck it in there, and providing you keep track of sort of where the actual tracks are, because they are sort of predestined, so you'll need to time your cassette and put your tracks in accordingly so that it all lines up. As long as you do that, you can basically put whatever you want on an 8-track. And I probably will be experimenting with that, but of course I got to get this thing working properly first, because from what I understand, I think the belt's gone in it. I'm not entirely sure, but I wouldn't be surprised, because this thing is, I don't know, about sort of 50 odd years old now, because I believe it came out in about 1970. Speaking of when it came out, what were the specs of this thing? Well, it's an 8-track 2-channel stereo deck, obviously, as shown by the fact that it says stereo. The tape speed was 9.5 centimeters a second. As is typical with a sort of deck like this is what you'd sort of call a 2-head deck. So it's got one record/playback head and one erase head. And obviously within that, you've got the 2 stacks to give you stereo. The frequency response is 50 to 16,000 Hertz, which is basically on par with compact cassettes, so that's pretty good. The signal to noise ratio is 47 dB. The wow and flutter is 0.25%, which is pretty good, really, and I wouldn't be surprised if this outperforms that by a massive margin with how well it's built. The dimensions are 345 by 135 by 250 millimeters, and it weighs 8.9 kilograms. And while I don't have the price in the UK, I do have the price in the US. So when this came out in 1970, this would have cost you $115 and half a cent. Accounting for inflation, that rounds up to about $960 in today's money, and it definitely feels like an item that would have cost you about $1,000. It sort of looked out of place in the brochure of its time period, as it was being surrounded by units that could play reel-to-reel and compact cassette. 8-track was kind of almost put to the side. to buy an 8-track unit on its own like this, I don't really think a lot of people did that in Europe. I think a lot of people here basically stuck to reel or went to compact cassette. They weren't really that interested in 8-track, I think because of its limitations, especially in regards to buying a recorder that had the ability to record one, and obviously all the limitations that come with 8-track, like their, you know, very specific timings and length that you got unless you're prepared to splice them. I do have a few more specs here for you. It claims to be a 1 micron gap head, whatever that means, that might be quite normal. A universal voltage selector, so you can actually run this on 50 or 60 Hertz, so it's worldwide compatible, including worldwide voltage compatible, which is pretty cool. And it contains 4 ICs and 12 transistors. Apparently, the total output power is 24 watts. So without further ado, let's see what it does. I've not plugged it in yet, personally, so I don't know what it's going to do or how it's going to behave. So let's explore this together. Just before I plug it in, let's have a look at what we've got. Now, these will need the foam pads replacing on it, so these aren't going to sound amazing in this recording, so you'll have to come back to me when I found some foam pads. But we've got Bread's Guitar Man, along with the track list there. 8-track stereo, manufactured and distributed by Precision Tapes Limited. And then on the back, you've got the warranty. And then obviously you take the tape out, which is surprisingly difficult. There we go. You got your program on the back. This is from 1972, so this would have been pretty period for this deck. So I wonder if they bought this tape new when they bought the unit. And here we've got Gladys Knight and the Pips, 2nd anniversary. So what have we got? The label certainly needs sorting, but we can sort that in time. Sorry about the bad focus. Here we go, there's the tape. And on the back, 1975. I tell you what I need to get. I need to get some Boney M. I quite like Boney M's music, and I'm sure that's quite easy to get on 8-track, no doubt. And my partner Samantha would like to get some Drifters music, so we'll get some of that as well. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to plug it in, and we're going to see what it does. Now, I would prefer if the power cord didn't try to act like a capacitor, being all coiled up. Right, here we go. Actually, before I turn it on, I suppose we better have a little look around the unit. We've got vents on top. Oh, goodness, this is so heavy. There's a fuse taped to the back. I don't know if it's meant to be taped there or if someone's done that. There's your 50, 60 Hertz switch for the actual voltage section of it. And there's a thing underneath we'll look at in a minute, which I think changes the motor to 60 Hertz. Here's the little thing that changes the voltage. I think it sort of twists or something. Obviously, I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to put it on 110 because it's going to blow up. There's a remote slot there, I assume to start it sort of recording remotely or whatever. You've got line inputs and line outputs. There's a DIN plug there. I'm not sure if that's for the speakers or if that's for the input or something. I'm not sure. You've got speaker like mini jacks, like, well, sorry, not mini jacks. They're probably not mini jacks really, are they? They're sort of, what, 6.25 mil? I don't think you call those mini jacks, but yeah. You've got the 2 speaker outputs and 2 microphone inputs as well. So you can use this as a dictation machine if you want to. So that's quite interesting. And then on the bottom, as I say, you've got the 50, 60 Hertz operate in play mode only. I think that's basically to dial your speed in because it's probably got a an asynchronous motor. Anyway, I've plugged it in, so let's switch it on. Power switch on the socket is on. Let's sit down. Now it's time to push the power switch on the unit. So the track thing has lit up. So that should be stepping the head up and down in there. So let's verify it doing that. Oh yeah, looks like it. Perhaps a little stiff. Could just be a lubrication issue. Yeah, it looks a little bit stiff to me. But it is doing it. So that's good. So let's try some of the Gladys Knight. See if that works. That actually sounds like it might be moving. Let's see if it is. We've got a phone's output, so I'll see if I'm actually getting any music output from it. Okay, so I've got some Altec Lansing powered speakers plumbed into the back. So let's see if we can get any sound out of it. So let's turn that down, because I don't know how loud this is going to be. Put the Gladys Knight cassette in there. Play. Oh, listen to that! It works! Wow, I was not expecting that. I was told this thing didn't work. No way, that's awesome. Now we can absolutely work with this. Does the track selection work? It does, listen. Obviously it doesn't sound very good because it needs the foam replacing, I know about that. The control's a little scratchy, but we can sort that obviously. That's awesome, I did not expect this to work, and I hope I don't get a copyright strike for using this. But this is awesome. This means we might not have to do too much to this deck other than lubricate it and clean it. Because if you don't know, if you've got an original belt and there's nothing wrong with it, chances are it's probably made out of a better rubber than you can buy today, so leave it alone if it's got no signs of breaking. So we'll see, you never know, it might be stretched, and if it is, we'll get a new one. But for now, I did not expect that. It just works, and even the track selector works. Awesome. Let's see if we can play some of Bread's Guitar Man. I quite liked the Gladys tape. I could definitely see myself listen to that. Let's see if this one works. Sure sounds like it. It sounds pretty stable speed-wise, I would imagine. Obviously, I have to keep changing tracks and talking over it and turning it up and down because of YouTube copyright. I don't want to get the video blocked. But that seems to work, doesn't it? That's pretty cool. Damn, we might just have a perfectly functional 8-track on our hands. I love it. So in an amazing stroke of luck, it seems like this just works. So what we need to do now is take this unit apart, take a good look over it, and clean it up, re-lubricate it, because I noticed the head seemed sort of sluggish to step. You'll notice I sort of pressed the button and it kind of dropped gently, whereas it should drop instantly. So there's a chance it probably just needs like old grease cleaning up and whatnot. And we'll check the condition of the belt, because you never know, it might still want a belt. But the plus side is it's a lot easier to measure to try and find one, so that's a good thing. So we'll cut power to it and we'll get this thing open. Alright, so I'm guessing we should probably start at the bottom. Now I need to be careful because this is going to scuff the crap out of this desk. And I know I hear you here, and I know I hear you cry, why are you worried about this desk? It's pretty knackered. And it is, but I also don't want to make it worse, you know? I don't want to make it so it's completely unusable. Right. Right then, let's go. Jesus Christ, they're done up tight. I think I might be the first person to be in here. Not that that's a bad thing, because it means that hopefully no one's messed with anything. Looks like I was absolutely right. I think this bottom bit will come off and reveal. Okay, ouch. I think I need a slightly thicker screwdriver for that. There we are. Look at that capacitor. Wow. That is not messing about. I assume that's probably the motor start capacitor. Might want to check that he's been discharged, because he's a big one. Oh yeah, we still had a little bit of power in there. Yeah, that was pretty big. I assume that looks like the big asynchronous motor, which is rather warm. Yeah, looks like it says 2-speed motor. It makes sense. Probably one for 60 and one for 50. I haven't seen the belt yet. I can see sort of the top of the 8-track mechanism here. So I can see like where the head steps, you know, and you've got the springed mechanism there. But it looks like we're probably going to need to get in the top if we want access to the rest of it. So I'll keep undoing screws. So I probably didn't need to remove the wooden side panels at all, but I have. Well, the plus side does let me see the terminals of a certain capacitor, so if need be, I can discharge it that way. To remove this taped on fuse, there we go. Don't know how long that's been on there. Could have been all of its life, I suppose. Wow! Whoa! Look at this! Now that's a flywheel! Wow. Yeah, the belt's definitely a little bit on the loose side. I probably would want to consider replacing that. But, wow. No wonder this thing sounds so good. That is a solid flywheel. Wow. That's beautiful. Let's see this belt. This belt looks like 1.5 mil thick or something crazy. Oh, in order to replace it, you've actually got to unscrew this, I think. By the looks of it. Oh, look at that. I guess that's to do with the changing the speeds and stuff. Hopefully this doesn't spring into 1,000 pieces when I take this apart. Oh no, it's literally just a protection cover to allow you to take the belt off. That's what essentially allows it to step. This acts as a guide. But there you go. That is a belt and a half. Wowee. I'll certainly keep it, but I might consider replacing it because it has become... it's probably going to be difficult to see, but it has got a shine to it now. Of course, it's difficult to see if I'm not holding it properly. Yeah, you can see it's got a little bit of a shine to it now, so it's a bit more smoother than it should be, so it's probably not gripping quite right. So I'll consider getting one of these. Look at this flywheel though, what a gorgeous piece of engineering. Again, like, wow, that is incredible. That's a proper flywheeling effect on that. That's by far the coolest flywheel I've ever seen, sorry. That motor spin's lovely, although I'll make sure to give it a drop of oil as well. Same with the capstan, I would imagine. I'm sure the capstan wouldn't complain if I give it a little drop of oil. Right then, so changing the belt on one of these, super easy. Very much enjoyed that. The main thing for us to do now is clean some stuff. I'm going to stop for a minute and I'm going to gauge where I want to go next. Okay, so I have managed to find a belt online, so I will order that once I get a chance. But I do have a little trick for refreshing belts like this. Essentially what we do is we spray some isopropyl alcohol onto a cloth. Now this cloth looks horrendous even though it's clean, because all it does is clean things like this. That's why it looks horrendous. It cleans this and heat sinks and everything, but it does get washed regularly in the washing machine, so that gets rid of a lot of crud. Anyway, what I do is I then pinch it between my fingers and just run it like this. It makes horrendous noises. What this does is it then cleans both sides of the belt. And that's not bad, actually. That's pretty good in there now. And there's also a trick you can do with a flat belt if you want to use the slightly grippier side. Just flip it the other way around, and that'll help you use it. And that'll get a little bit more life out of this. So obviously I'm going to keep this even when I buy a new one, because this did work. So if I was in a pinch, I'll be able to still use this. But it's definitely a little bit harder than it should be. So it is in need of replacement. But it probably will last forever in the current state that it is, because as I say, it's made it, what, like 50 years potentially. So don't throw away old belts if they did function, because you never know one day. If the new rubber deteriorates and dies, you might just rely on this to be able to play your favourite 8-tracks, or record them if the performance isn't too bad. Which it might not be, but that's one of the reasons I want to buy a new belt, because I want to compare the fit and finish between the two of them. Anyway, something else I'm going to do here now is I'm going to take the capstan flywheel off and clean it, because the edge of it is pretty nasty looking, and obviously that's not going to help belt health. So it looks like it needs a hex head, which I don't... Oh no, do I have one that's the right size though? Oh, it's going to be a bit too precision, isn't it? Maybe not. Let's see. Obviously these are going to be done up tight because you wouldn't want it flying off in operation. Okay. Let me pull it off yet. Not quite. That's not to say it's not going to be very on here as well. It really doesn't want to exit. There isn't two, is there? Nope, just the one. Oh, goodness, that is very on there. Yeah, that is very, very attached. I don't want to be careful because these have a brass sleeve bearing, so I don't want to wrench too much in like opposing directions because it's very likely I may actually warp that and cause the capstan to wobble. Oh, it didn't want to come out. I was really hoping it would come out to make my life just a little bit easier in that regard, but apparently not. Especially because it would be nice to try and clean it slightly, but yeah, this looks like not a fun unit to get into to clean the capstans. Oh, there is more than one. Excuse me, there is more than one. That'll probably be doing it. Wow, Akai really didn't want the capstan flywheel to come off, did it? Oh yeah, it's moving now. Akai really didn't want that capstan flywheel to come off, did they? Wow. That is a beast. That is just a huge chunk of cast. Cast aluminium, presumably? Could be cast steel, I'm not sure. What a beast, though. I can't believe that as well. 2 hex heads to hold this onto the shaft. That's incredible. And the shaft actually does have a groove in it for locating itself on there as well, which is very clever. And now this allows us access to the actual bearing, so we can oil it and things like that now to keep it really happy, which is fantastic news. Because I can drop a little bit of oil in there with a syringe, spin it round, and it'll spin beautifully till the end of Kingdom Come, I would imagine. Right. Right, let's clean this. I apologise for the lack of light because this thing is sat here like a monolith, so it's kind of blocking a lot of my my lighting. So apologies for that. I'll probably just finish this cleaning job off camera. So I did some fairly major cleaning to this thing. It had a couple of pitted spots that I didn't want to chew up the new belt or even the existing belt. So I took P180 emery cloth that was lubricated with a lubricant. In this case, it was just Rocket that you can get from Asda. I went all the way around this. I cleaned it up and then I finished it off with a green scouring pad, just a normal sort of sponge-based one that you'd get. And this is utterly smooth now. So the belt should run beautifully over this without getting ripped apart by all the little bits of pitting and stuff there is. My nail doesn't catch at all now, where it was catching quite badly before. But now I can run it all the way around the diameter of this, and I literally can't feel a thing. So the belt is going to run beautifully on there. So there you go. That's a nice improvement. We'll see if we can do the same to the motor one now. Alright, so I had to get my ratchet out because it turns out that my screwdriver, the bits on it were a little bit too small. I guess I just got quite lucky with the other one. So let's go with this. That's tightening. Come on now. That's still tightening. Why is it tightening? What the heck is wrong with it? Why is that not undoing? Maybe it won't undo till the other one's undone? That seems like it's tightening still. What in the name? What's going on? Why can't I get this off? I'm perhaps a tad confused by this. 1 second. So I've sprayed Rocket into here to sort of get it to whip around the shaft of the motor. And it's definitely getting there. We've got a lot more back and forth movement than we did. Oh, we're nearly there. Hooray! There we go, we got it. There we go. As you can see, this is pretty blackened with sort of years of belt residue and probably corrosion to some degree as well, because the screws holding it in were in there pretty tightly. So yeah, that now gives us access to the motor, which is whisper quiet, by the way, but we will obviously give it some oil because that's the nice thing to do. And both sides of the bearing are like super accessible, so why not, right? But yeah, look at that. It spins really nicely and has a good freewheel to it. So yeah, this is what we're working with right now, and that's what we've got to clean up. So I'll report back to you when I've cleaned this up. That looks simply incredible now. There's a bit of a crack in that, bless it, so maybe I'll put a little dabble of glue up there. Or epoxy, as I've heard people do. But yeah, that looks really good now. So this is the part of the video where I feel like I really need to use my brain and work without the camera rolling. Thankfully, I always take lots of photos in these moments, which not only serve as a reference for me, which came in handy several times, but also content for the video. Let's have a look at what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. One of the biggest problems I wanted to sort out was the head stepping being sluggish. As we saw before, the head seemed like it was very sluggish to change track. To fix this, we needed to take the entire 8-track mech out of the case. Now this wasn't the worst mech removal job I've ever done, but it was far from easy. I had to take lots of photos to make sure I knew exactly where all the wires were going, as they were all soldered and had very specific points they needed to be reattached to. After the photographs were taken, I could finally desolder all of the wires. Once this was done, I could remove the now unscrewed 8-track mech from the rest of the system. From here, I could investigate what was happening with the head stepping assembly. It was just as I suspected, gummed up old grease that had turned to glue. I took a lot of reference photos to make sure if this thing exploded into 1,000 springs, I'd know exactly how to put it back together. Thankfully, it wasn't actually that bad to take apart, and I had the head assembly out in no time. From here, I could work on cleaning out the old grease, which I would then replace with a healthy dose of white lithium grease, which should last really nicely in there, and give the solenoid assembly a nice smooth action. Sure enough, this completely rectified the issue and the head now steps instantly between tracks. So there we are. We have fixed the Akai CR80 for today. I'm fairly sure the deck probably needs some azimuth tweaking, but it's a good basis to start with. My next task will be to replace the foam pads on all of the 8-track cartridges. Speaking of which, I actually have quite a lot more of them now, including actual blank ones and a Motorola car unit that I will all feature in a future episode. But for today, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in a future video.